Welcome to today's episode of Emotional Wellness with Creighton and Tracey Gibson. So Creighton, what is emotional wellness?
Well, emotional wellness is acceptance of feelings and emotions, and we want to figure out how to stimulate our passions and encourage activities and increase our curiosity.
So activities, you mean like a hobby?
It could be a hobby.
Yeah, that can make you feel good. We had some hobbies growing up. So our hobbies growing up were a little different than our hobbies now.
Yes.
But even thinking back to the good times you had in your youth with hobbies, that could give you some happiness and some emotional well-being as well, couldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So some of the suggested tips from experts out in the field of caregiving is to do some things like visualizing being calm. At the end of my day, Creighton, what do I normally ask for whenever we get home?
Me time.
I need some quiet. I need some, cut the TVs off, the television off, have some peace. I need some silence for a short period of time. And then, what is your peace? So, Creighton, if you were to go to your quiet, peaceful place, what does it sound like? What does it smell like? What can you hear? What is that?
My quiet place. What I love to do is when we're camping and to be just out sitting in the chair, smelling the evergreens, the flowers, sitting beside of a creek and hearing the water run, and just reading my Bible. That's my quiet time.
That's great. I've watched you do that many times over the years. So that's an awesome way to have a visualization, because you can close your eyes and visualize that any day. But actually getting to go experience it, well, that's just awesome. So now let's talk about the next best tip. When you tell yourself something positive, it helps us cope with whatever's happening. Example would be, I feel great. I feel like I am going to succeed at what I'm doing today. Mm-hmm. That could be a way of being positive. Creighton, is there a positive statement that you could think of?
My positive statement is doing one thing at a time, completing it, moving to the next one, gives me a sense of accomplishment.
And I have seen you coach other people with that one thing at a time. So how do you tell other people what's their best way with that one thing at a time? Is it creating a list?
I create a list, mark it off when I'm done. Makes me feel good.
I absolutely love marking off those things. That makes me feel great whenever I get to do that check mark or drawing that line through it. I just love marking off things off of a list. And then, at the end of the day, I even create a fresh new list for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then if that thing doesn't get marked off, maybe it shouldn't have been there in the first place. So that helps you prioritize and get your things done that you need to get done. Next on our list is focus on being proactive and work to improve your situation. So how do we think we could be proactive?
Proactive. One of the things that I do, I put a list on my calendar, and one of them is walking every day. So I take time and walk 20, 30 minutes each day, and gives me some downtime and just me time to think.
And can you see your steps that you walk, the number?
I can.
So if you wanted to keep up with your steps, you can use your smartphone to do that. And let's say you were walking 5,000 steps a day and you wanted to increase that to 6,000. Then you may go, tomorrow I'm going to do 5,100. Then the next day, 5,200. But ever what you feel comfortable with. And that could be a way you could lift your spirits because you're increasing your activity and being able to mark it off, which increases your emotional well-being, along with your physical on that one. Yep. The next thing on the list is when you have some thoughts and feelings in your head that are negative, that are bad, and you want to get things out of there that's bothering you. Why would you put that on the list?
Well, any time that you can reduce the anxiety and and be positive, you're going to feel better about yourself.
So just writing it down. I'm not doing enough steps today. I don't like not doing enough steps today. So then once you start getting over that and doing more steps, then that can just get off your list. You can overcome that. It helps you overcome it.
Be positive.
Be positive. So being positive. Next on our list is to talk nice to yourself, pat yourself on the back. Tracey, you're doing such a great job today. You know, it kind of makes you feel good. How can you talk nicely to yourself?
Talk nicely to myself. Well, I talk nice to myself all the time. I think nice things. So
Yes.
that's just me.
And that's a good thing. So if you haven't practiced that, I've met some people, they look in the mirror and they just talk down upon themselves. Don't do that. God made you. He made you beautiful inside and out. So know that. He made you to be who you are. And talking nice to yourself is so important. So do that. Give that a try. Next on our list is to search an app store on your smartphone for something that you can meditate with, something you may can relax with. Creighton, do you have something you want to share about that?
I do. One of my favorite apps is Bible Gateway. It gives me verses of the day. It gives me it keeps up with my Bible reading and words of encouragement. So it's a great one for me.
And I know that people have seen these things before because they're inspirational, some of them. And this one is one that Charles Stanley created. And January 23rd, it says, let prayer punctuate your day. As you begin your morning, Father, you are good. And as you commute to work or walk to the hallways at school, I need help. As you wait in the grocery line, they need help. Keep this prayer in your pocket as you pass throughout the day, and that can help meditate on God's love in that day. So I think those are good ways to think through it. And last on our list is to, if you have a pet, what does a pet do for your life?
Well, for us, we have Bentley. And Bentley, we've made our office dog, so everybody in the office gets to enjoy the excitement and joy of Bentley as he comes through and talks to everybody. So it lifts up the office and our office and puts everybody on a positive note. He makes everybody happy.
So let me let you visualize Bentley. He is a 40-pound Cocker Spaniel looking dog, but he is a mini Bernie Doodle. He can jump 6 feet, flat-footed, and he jumps and smiles, and he has his path that he goes through the office. So he goes and visits Nurse Deb, then he goes and visits HR. They all give him treats, and you know what? He lifts the spirits of the office.
He does.
They love seeing Bentley. We talked about bringing him here today, but it might be too much to have a bouncing Bentley dog in this studio. So we decided against that. But he does give some emotional well-being to our offices.
A lot of joy.
Hi, welcome back to Health Tips with Cale. I can't believe that Tracey and Creighton were able to talk a little bit about the emotional well-being. That is phenomenal. And I really loved how they talked about being proactive. Nobody loves being proactive more than I do, I would say. And that really didn't start until a few years ago. For me, I had to kind of find my way into the Bachelor's of Exercise Science degree, which I graduated back in 2019. That really helped to kind of push my love for health and fitness and overall well-being and being proactive. Growing up as a child, I had always wanted to be a doctor of a sort and always trying to help people with any medical condition and just be there for people. But I found out that it wasn't enough to just want to prescribe medications or try and help people in that sort of way. I found out that there's other ways to help people. And for me, I really wanted to pursue helping people before they got sick and really get to the root cause of things. And so for me, I've kind of found my way through exercise and nutrition. And for me, it was just, I don't know, I really fell in love with being active overall, anything to really truly help my overall well-being, whether it was emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, any sort of way. And today I'm wearing one of my favorite shirts, and last week I wore my other favorite shirt. But for those of you that can't see me, I'm actually wearing my Appalachian Trail shirt, which I thru hiked in 2020. That was phenomenal. Talk about an amazing hiking experience and experience overall. That really boosted my emotional and mental and physical well-being beyond anything I could ever imagine. Last week, I wore my Ironman triathlon shirt. I mean, that was also a phenomenal event that I partaked in. But it's not so much about what I've been able to accomplish or any of the other races or anything else I've done. It's me trying to communicate how to help you guys out. And so last week we talked a bit about how nutrition can really play a role in our mental well-being, and how the foods that we eat really play effect on our overall health and well-being, and how we really need to eat not just to fulfill ourselves, but we really need to eat so we can get nutrients from the foods that will actually help us and help our bodies to provide the functions to stay healthy throughout each day. So last week we really kind of talked more about how nutrition plays a role on our mental well-being and health. And so we really want to be able to utilize that best we can. We really want to work on our stress levels, our depression, and even finding out last week that food can actually play a role in dementia and Alzheimer's. But it's just more than that, though. There is so much more that food actually plays an impact in. And so we really want to look at how can we use the nutrients that we kind of talked about, and what do they actually look like? How do we actually find the nutrients that we need and then actually use them in our day-to-day lives so we can have a better, fulfilling life? And so I want to talk a little bit about food labels with you today. I know, might be a little boring, right? But check this out. So I actually found out that on the FDA website, when researching, that the serving levels on packages aren't actually based off of science. I thought that was mind-blowing. They're actually based off of how much people typically eat today. And so that means a lot of our serving sizes have increased. And so talking about that, I just want to kind of briefly kind of give you a rundown of what a food label is and then how to kind of use it and make adjustment calls based off of that. So going from top down for our food labels, we have our serving size and the servings per packages. Then underneath that, we have calories, which are just nothing more than the energy that we absorb from the foods and nutrients. And then underneath that, we have our nutrients. And then the fourth thing is the percentage of daily value. And that just talks about how much of that specific nutrient we are supposed to be eating based off a 2,000 calorie diet per day. And so I actually want to add in a fifth thing that I really think is really important to look at, and that's the ingredients list. And the reason why I say the ingredients list is because a lot of these foods, they might seem like they're great things to be eating, but if all we're eating is a bunch of chemicals or things that we don't actually know about, then what good is that really doing us? Because we don't really know what these chemicals are doing to our body. There haven't really been that many long-term studies talking about a lot of these chemicals in these foods. But what we do know is that foods like blueberries, chicken, carrots, broccoli, any of these actual whole foods, things that we grow, things that we can actually see, and things that we actually truly know about, those are the things that we should really be focusing on. Those are the things that we know are there to actually help us. They were created by God for us. And so we really need to focus more on the ingredients list, I would like to say. So going back up to the servings, as I specified earlier, these serving sizes actually aren't based off of how much we should be eating, but based off of how much people are typically eating today, which means things for like ice cream and soda have actually increased over time, which to me, that's scary. Because if it used to be 8 ounces of soda, and drinking a few of those could actually lead to health issues such as obesity or cardiovascular disease or any of those other things, increasing it by 4 ounces, that's a 50% increase. That is mind-blowing. Just think about the health impacts that could cause. So I'd rather not like to focus on the serving sizes as how much we should eat each day, but maybe using them as a reference to kind of see how we can ratio things out to benefit us the most. And so underneath that, we're going to go down to calories. Calories are nothing more than the energy that we get from the food and the nutrients. But not every calorie is the same. Calories from table sugar is not going to do the same for our bodies as the same amount of calories from blueberries or a piece of steak or whatever it is you might eat, or vegetables. So that's where the ingredients will come in. But I'll get to that a little bit later. And so underneath that, we have the nutrients. So what are these nutrients that we should really be looking at? And what nutrients should we really be looking for? Well, there are 7 essential nutrients, and those are water, fiber, protein, carbohydrates, also known as carbs, fats, and then we've also got our micronutrients, such as minerals and vitamins. And so those are the 7 essential things. And so the first one that I want to talk about is fats, because that's normally what you're going to see first on a food label. And so fats are something that we actually really need. They play an important role in our overall body. But where do exactly we get them? So a lot of foods such as avocados, oils, coconut oil, for example, or even your vegetable oil. Those are all sorts of fats. You can also get fats in meats or fish, so like omega-3, omega-6s. Those are all big fancy words for other different types of fats, but those are all healthy fats. And so what are the fats that we should really be looking for? Because there are multiple different fats, aren't there? Well, you're right. You've got your saturated fats, which are considered your bad fats, and your unsaturated fats, which are considered your healthy fats. And a key rule of thumb is if it's solid at room temperature, you probably shouldn't be eating it. And if it's liquid at room temperature, then it's probably good to consume, but I would really recommend consuming it in limited amounts, because 1 gram of fat actually equates to 9 calories, which is twice the amount for protein and carbohydrates. So you can really rack up calories that way. But why am I pushing calories at this point? Well, if you ever heard of calories in minus calories out, well, if that equation doesn't equal up, you could actually be gaining weight, or you could be trying to lose too much weight, or maybe you're trying to lose weight, but you're not actually losing the weight because you're not eating enough calories. So there's a whole big thing that I would like to talk about in a further segment, maybe not today, about calories and breaking everything else down. But let's move on. Let's move on to proteins, shall we? So proteins are, I would say, one of the best macronutrients out there. I just love proteins because you can get proteins in everything. You can get in a nice burger if you're looking for a nice cheat day. I know. Talking about nutrition, I'm talking about burgers here, right? I'm starting to get hungry myself. But let's talk about like fish, or maybe a nice steak, or even some vegetables actually have some good sense of proteins. But what exactly do proteins play a role in? Well, proteins play a role in almost everything in our lives, in our bodies too. We need proteins to metabolize foods, which just means to break down foods. We need proteins to build muscle. So the muscle that we have to move things around, to push weight around, to move anything or do anything or to function. We need proteins just for those little factors. We have proteins in our skin. We have proteins in our hairs. We have proteins literally everywhere. Without proteins, our bodies just would not be able to function at all. So proteins are essential, absolutely essential. And I would really like to recommend trying to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And with that, I just kind of really recommend that because when people are stressed out, or when people are very active, or even for elder adults, we need proteins more than ever, just so we can maintain a status quo for our bodies. But with protein, you're actually not going to gain weight as much as protein, and it also helps with staying full overall. So with proteins, I just really recommend trying to go for 1 gram per pound of body weight. And if you eat too much protein, well, guess what? There's not going to be that much of a cost for that. Because for proteins, there's actually a thermogenetic effect, which just means when you eat when you eat too many proteins, your body actually has to heat up in order to break down those proteins a little bit more, which means you actually burn more calories by eating more protein, which is pretty cool. But let's move on to carbs, shall we? So carbohydrates. Carbs are what our body tends to use most frequently. It's the most easily accessible nutrient in our body for energy, providing us energy and being able to help us move around and not feel lethargic, or helping us to work out, or to just make sure we can do things with a proper sort of mindset throughout the day. Our brains need protein, or needs carbs. Our brains also need fats. But carbohydrates are really one of the only things that the brain can actually utilize as energy. And so I really recommend trying to keep up with your carbohydrates. Obviously, if you eat too many carbohydrates, you could also gain some weight, and that's not good. But underneath carbohydrates, we also have fiber, which is another one of those essential minerals and nutrients that we talked about. With fiber, that really helps to kind of cleanse out our system, and it also helps to kind of keep us full overall. So trying to make sure we look for fiber and keeping our carbohydrates and our fats and our proteins at I would say, an even sort of score, or even ratios, is a really good way to look at things. And then so from there, we can look at the percent daily value based off a 2,000 calorie diet. With me, I personally don't really look at this too much. I know I should, probably. But with me, I try to stay really active. So I know my calorie intake might be a little bit different from that 2,000 calorie intake that they're assuming for me. But if you're a woman, if you're an average woman, I would really look at those percent daily values, because those can really kind of help keep you in track. For men, we need about 2,500 calories on average. So maybe just upping those a little bit, or kind of finding the ratio for those might help out. But kind of sticking along with those will also help too. And so those are the 4 main ones on the food label that we need to really be looking at. And now the ingredients, the one that I really recommend. If we're looking at things where you just see yellow 5, or one thing that really annoys me or really gets to me is natural flavoring. Well, why are you adding natural flavoring to something if it's meant to be natural flavoring? That just does not make sense to me. Yet, I still need to look that up, shouldn't I? Maybe I should. But natural flavoring, and we've got all these other things. Why are we adding so much stuff to food? Why can't we just have things like carrots, chicken, and blueberries, or all these other foods that we really need? An RX bar has everything listed out there in front for you. It has eggs, it has nuts, it has dates, all these things that we can actually read and we can buy individually and find overall. So it is just look for foods that have just mostly whole foods like those, and nothing that has all these chemicals that we can't actually pronounce. But thank you for joining me today with Cale's Health Tips. Let's see you again next week.
Welcome back. And now it's time for the next episode of Elizabeth Anne Rinehardt's stories from living in Mooresville, North Carolina. And these stories come from the 1930s and 40s. So I hope you enjoy today's story. And this is as if Anne was reading it. He had to outwit the elements of frost, drought, insects, and was always sure God would send enough rain and sunshine to provide his crops to produce the food to feed his family. Mother was always there, doing her best to make to do with whatever he provided her. Life seemed harsh for them their entire lives, but Father and Mother lived in Gaston County, where they met while living in McAdenville, where Mother was Miss McAdenville in the late 1800s. Dad was a part-time barber, along with Will Walters, who later married Dad's sister, Gertie. Dad had been to Iredell County along with his dad to quail hunt and found 150 acres of land for sale 1 mile outside Mooresville. It was known as the Old McNeely property. Dad and Granddad looked it over and decided to buy the farm. They moved to Mooresville in 1905. Dad worked in Mooresville mills, weaving at night, farming during the day. He married Minnie Pearl Stafford, April 5th of 1905 in Blacksburg, South Carolina. They drove the horses in Surrey to get married from McAdenville. They moved to Mooresville and lived in the little house to run their household. Mother had to go to the big house to get her daily allowance of meat, flour, cornmeal, and all the things needed for the next day's breakfast, lunch, and supper. Every single thing came through the big house. Once Granddad and Dad went to Oswalt Flour Mill in Troutman to have wheat and corn ground for flour and flour meal. Mother asked Dad to stop at Shaver Chair Company and pick up 6 straight chairs for their house. They had saved money and earmarked it for just that need. When Dad and Granddad got to the grandparents' home that evening, Grandmother came out on the porch and said, "Where did you get those chairs?" "I need those. Just leave those right here." So the chairs never got to the house that day. Mother and Dad worked in the weave room at the mill. They truly were survivals of their time, pioneers of early America. The length of their day was governed by the sun, then the lantern to stretch their day. They fell into a bed of straw ticks nightly, not from tension, but from tired, weary muscles. Mother always had a beautiful table of food, which was brought straight from the field to the kitchen. It was prepared by the skilled hands of a mother who knew how to feed hungry folks. I begged my brother John and sister Jeanette to teach me how to milk the cows. Well, once they did, that was my permanent job. And I started at 7 years old, and that was my job until I moved off and got married. Morning and night, those daggone cows had to be milked. I made the mistake of teaching the cats to stand on their back legs, stand up, and drink the milk as I squirted it into their mouths. It also took me much longer to get my milking done. My cows were good old girls except for one little heifer and her calf. That gal kicked like a shotgun blast. Dad would tie her back leg until I milked her. He finally traded her off and got me a more gentle cow to work with. One of the dogs we had was a real dog to help run our cows up from the pasture. You would give the command to go get the cows, and she always ran them to the barn. She was so much fun to watch. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's story time, and next time we'll continue our lessons from Elizabeth Anne Rinehart's growing up in Iredell County, Mooresville, North Carolina.
Thank you for watching Caring Corner. Make sure you head over to our Facebook and YouTube channel where you will find this program along with others. Be sure that you subscribe, like, and click the notification bell so that you will receive notifications for our weekly program. Don't forget to share this program to your social media platforms. If there's a question that you would like to ask, make sure to email it to caringcorner22@gmail.com. We hope to see you on the next episode of Caring Corner.